Hello, 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Testing. Hello, 1 2 3 1 2 3. Hello, 1 2 3. Yes.
Speakers, I think you can hand it all the way through. Okay? 54, I think you can hand it all the way through.
All right, if everyone, board members can get in their seats, we'll be starting in about 2 minutes. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tammy Darnett Koufax, and I'm serving as this year's budget chair, so I'll be running tonight's public hearing. Welcome to this public hearing, and on behalf of the school board members, I want to thank you for taking time out of your evening to come and talk to us about our approved budget. At this time, I would ask you to please turn off or silence your cell phones. Tonight we have 50 registered speakers, 6 of which are students, and they will be speaking first, our students. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes, and to be respectful of everyone, I ask that you please stay within those 3-minute time, that 3-minute time limit. The clerk will start the timer, excuse me, and my phone, that I did not turn off. See? Turn off your cell phone, Miss Darnett Koufax. Here we go. All right. As I said, the clerk will start a timer when you begin to speak, and you will be able to see the time remaining on the clock at the lectern. The buzzer will sound at the conclusion of your 3 minutes. 3 names will be announced at a time, and when you hear your name, please move closer to the front of the auditorium so you will be ready when it is your turn to speak. If you plan to yield your slot to someone else, and you did not call in advance, please come up to the podium when your name is called and give your time to another speaker for the record. If speakers are not here when their name is called, I will call those names at a later time. There will be an opportunity for individuals to speak if there are no-show speaker slots remaining at the end of the entirety of the hearing. After all the registered speakers have addressed the board, I will announce whether or not there are no-show slots available. And for this, we ask that you state your full name at the time you speak. After you have spoken, please see one of the clerks over here to my right, and they will collect your contact information for the record. Throughout the evening, you may notice that board members leave the table at times, but we do have access in the back to television that is broadcasting this public hearing, and so we will be watching at all times. And with that, I will begin calling our first student speakers, and we will begin with James Robinson, followed by Ania Herrick and Naomi Beth.
Good evening. My name is James Robinson, and I am a 4th grader at Wolftrap Elementary. I am here to ask you to not allow the class size increases in our schools next year, because all children deserve to sit in quality class sizes. I have a question. Would you ever invite 28 or more 4th graders to your home for a play date? I know how crazy it makes my mom if we get too ratty when I have just one friend over for a play date. I don't think she would ever invite 28 4th graders over for a play date. Yet I've been in classes of 28 or more in all my years at Wolftrap. I spoke about my large classes with you 2 years ago when I began my 2nd grade year at Wolftrap with 29 students per class. And this year I have classes of 28, and our 1st grade classes are at 29. It is so crowded in our school. I often sit in the hallway for our small group work because it is the quietest, least crowded place I've seen in many other grades too. Yeah, I don't know. The large class makes it difficult to line up for recess, lunch, and other classrooms. In fact, one day we were over 5 minutes late for recess because kids wouldn't line up. There were just too many talking and being disruptive. I hate having to waste time waiting in line every day rather than having more time for recess, my favorite class. This year, we studied colonial life in America. We were given the assignment to write a convincing argument for why we'd be a great president and choose one of our favorite colonial leaders to be our running mate. I chose James Madison because of his leading role in writing our Constitution. I had just 3 minutes to present and receive a few comments from my classmates. There was so little time for discussion because we had to get through 28 presentations. Our class size is so large that we don't get called on much to answer questions. I get called on maybe one, if I'm lucky, 2 times a day. And it's difficult to get much of my teacher's time on my classwork. I can only hope to someday see how it feels to be called on more, to have more teacher comments on my homework papers and tests. I don't blame my awesome teachers for this, and I know they stay really late at school just to keep up with the workload of my large class. I'm afraid to think how clouded my classes will be if you allow the class size increases. I'm also afraid of how much less I'll get called on by my teachers or get comments on my homework. Please do not approve the increase of our class size next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Ania Herrick?
Herrick, yeah. Hello, my name is Ania Herrick. I am a sophomore at McLean High School, and I've come to express my concern for the catastrophic effects of the freeze on teachers' paychecks. Teachers are the rock that the future of America is depending on. They dedicate themselves towards providing students with the proper skills necessary to thrive in today's economy. They're the mentors that encourage and motivate students to try something new. The purpose of this public school system is to provide the opportunity for all students from any background to succeed with the best possible education that will allow them to fulfill their dreams. The idea of being able to make your dreams come true through hard work is one of the pillars that this nation was built upon and makes this country unique. It is our responsibility to uphold this idea by allowing our teachers to carry on inspiring our youth. By underpaying teachers, we are forcing them to seek other sources of income that take away their time from the classroom. The budget has to prioritize relationships between students and teachers. The world today is in desperate need of innovators to solve widespread environmental, social, health, and political issues. The school system has the potential to produce the future problem solvers that will tackle epidemics, world hunger, unemployment, refugee crises, etc. Let's create more opportunities for the future by enabling teachers to continue to inspire curiosity. I know that like many other parents, my parents have sacrificed a lot to give me the opportunity to go to Fairfax County Public Schools so that I can fulfill my dreams and I can work hard and reach where I want to be in life. And I know that other parents feel the same way in the school system, and I think that it's only fair that we give them the opportunity to do this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Naomi Berhay, followed by Randall Weidman and Laura Sizemore. Naomi? All right. Randall Weidman.
Good evening to the board and to fellow concerned community members. My name is Randy Weidman, and I am the proud product of FCPS. From kindergarten at Lee's Corner Elementary through my graduation from Chantilly High School next month, I have attended Fairfax County Public Schools for almost 13 years. I believe education is the best and most effective way to social climb, but when we decrease the quality of kids' education, we tarnish the very ability they have to social climb and pursue the American dream. Because of the opportunities afforded to me through the excellent programs of FCPS and through my motivations, I have been able to take advantage of a wide array of academic and extracurricular opportunities and will be attending a Tier 1 research university next year on an academic scholarship to their honors program. My mom was the first person in her family to go to college. She too graduated from Chantilly, and I hope to be the first person in my family to graduate from med school. I truly believe that the school system I grew up in had a distinct and direct impact on the trajectory of my life. However, when class size increases are proposed, there are many rippling aftershocks. Teachers are expected to teach to more students. There are often hiring limits, and sometimes existing teachers are cut. There's an added strain on student growth. It takes longer to get feedback, and it's tougher for students and their families to analyze and strategically increase our academic progress. Across middle and high school, I've taken 8 laboratory science courses. The impact of increased class sizes has been well felt in the laboratory setting, as due to the material limits and safety concerns given the size of the class, we have had to observe demonstrations instead of experiencing the experiments for ourselves. During other laboratory activities, we often take turns performing the experiment. The traditional lab partners of 2 has exploded to a lab group of 5 and 6. This encroaches student success and subsequent learning in laboratory science research. An AP teacher of mine was so hard-pressed to return papers from our diagnostic test before the AP exam, he graded papers during the previews when he went to the movies with his family and while sitting in the back of his daughter's Saturday dance performance. Teachers are leaving, and despite having one of the most academically competitive school systems in our area, we are the least competitive in how we treat and compensate our teachers. There is an inequitable distribution of class sizes, and FCPS chooses to conceal their individual middle and high school class size averages, instead providing county averages, hiding data, and obstructing information from students and their families, taxpayers, and concerned community members. It is not uncommon at my school for a 35-person course to run next door to a 15-person class, or for multiple sections of the same class to run on a range of 17 to 34 students. This inequitable discrepancy puts strains on teachers and hurts students. An increase like this doesn't seem at the surface to be quite so harmful, but it's not the limit that we're raising, rather the target, and sometimes classes are overfilled. As a student, I've seen this firsthand. A few extra kids goes beyond the number we're trying to swallow here tonight. A class that once was 30 becomes 32, and in the case of my freshman language graduation requirement French course, 34 seats are jammed into a room like a maze, 34 kids. I respectfully ask that you not allow the 0.5 across-the-board increase in all FCPS elementary, middle, and high school classes to occur. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Laura Sizemore, followed by Parker Brown.
Hello, my name is Laura Sizemore, and I am a senior at Lake Braddock Secondary School. I'm here to ask you to please not cut funding for special education. My brother and I have been educated in Fairfax County schools our entire school life, and we have both benefited from its special education services. My brother Jake was diagnosed with low-functioning autism when he was 2. Everyone wrote him off. They said he wouldn't speak, that he wouldn't understand anything, that we should just put him in an institution. Instead, thanks to both home ABA therapy and the special education services he was offered through Fairfax County, he improved. He started talking. He no longer has meltdowns. He's independent and has friends. Most importantly, because of special education, he discovered his strengths. You see, my brother is a brilliant musician. What special education gave my brother were the skills, language, attention, and more to discover his love and talent for music. Because of special education, he can sit through music lessons. He can work with other kids in bands. He's learned music. Now in 8th grade, he's one of the 2 middle schoolers in the advanced guitar ensemble. He's auditioned on Broadway. He's been played in front of thousands on the National Mall, and he can play you a 3-hour set at the drop of a hat. It may not seem like a big deal to you, but to him, special education opened the doors to his future career, a musician. He will someday be a productive citizen thanks to the skills special education gave him. Without it, he would most likely be a burden on society. With it, he has a life, a career in something he loves and is incredibly good at. Special education also gave me my life back. When I was 8, I watched my dad die suddenly of a brain aneurysm, causing me to develop PTSD and anxiety. By 6th grade, my anxiety was out of control. I'm afraid what might have happened if an amazing school counselor hadn't recognized my need for help. Despite being in the AAP program, I needed special education to help me learn to deal with the trauma in my life. Thanks to therapy and the support at school through my 504, I learned to deal with my anxiety. Each year, my 504 grew smaller as I learned to cope. I didn't need much, but what I needed was critical to my mental health and success at school. I feel like sometimes when people think of special education, they don't think of someone like me, someone who will graduate in a few weeks and will attend Cornell University next fall. They don't think of someone like my brother, whose autism means he can't maintain a conversation, but can play 4 musical instruments and has played 19 gigs across this county just this year. He may not end up in an Ivy League like me, but he's already a successful musician, and I predict you will someday see him at the Grammys. Special education kids have amazing potential. Please don't take away the services they need. They're human beings who have as much of a right to be as part of our society, but due to circumstances beyond our control, require additional educational support to take their place in society. Don't take away what they need to live with dignity. Thank you for listening.
Parker Brown.
Members of the FCPS School Board, my name is Parker Brown, and I'm a sophomore at West Springfield High School. I'm here to discuss the 2018 FCPS budget. Currently, FCPS faces a budget shortfall of approximately $47 million. Numerous changes to the budget have been suggested to counteract the shortfall, one of which is increasing the student staffing ratio formula by 0.5 students per teacher at all school levels. This change will save the school system nearly $15 million, but I urge all of you to consider the negative effects of such action. At my local elementary school, every single kindergarten classroom already has 27 students, and in third grade, every single classroom has 30 students or more. At my high school, class size varies from 28 to 31 students, and from a student's perspective, classes are already oversized. The best way we can improve our county's education system is to not make classes larger, but to make them smaller. As much as teachers try to ensure that every student feels like a part of the class, when we have over 30 students per classroom, sometimes students are simply lost in the shuffle. At this time, the county is currently emphasizing its dedication to the preservation of students' mental health. But I feel these class size increases will only create new barriers between students and their teachers, causing students to feel neglected and sometimes even invisible. The staff currently uses technology to connect us with our learning, but students have to feel that their teachers connect with them. There's nothing better than hands-on or verbal instruction from a teacher that knows his or her students. Even if the change suggested is only 0.5 students larger class on average, this still means that class sizes will increase by several students per classroom. Students' performance in classes could very well precipitate. Class management will be harder for individual teachers, and many teachers may even leave the county simply because they do not wish to have a class with 34 or more students. Balancing FCPS's budget is very important, and I, as do many other community members, however, feel that increasing class size is not the solution to this dilemma. Thank you for considering a student's perspective.
Thank you. Before I leave the student section, has Naomi Beth come yet? No. So clerks, if she comes, please alert me. So now we're going to go on to the citizens, since we finished the student group. We have Joe Newber, followed by Delegate Jim Lemunion, and then David Edelman.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Whoop, sorry. There. Okay, that's better. Hi, good evening. My name is Joan Newber. I am the proud parent of James Robinson, the fourth grader you first heard speak tonight. I'm also co-chair of Class Size Counts, a group with reach to over 5,000 people who support reasonable class sizes for all our students and teachers. Over the past 5 years, Class Size Counts has worked with state and local legislators, teachers associations, and others to reduce the number of excessively large class sizes. Joining us tonight is one of our class heroes, Delegate Jim Lemunion, who worked with us on bipartisan class size legislation this year, including a bill that passed, which now requires middle and high school class size reporting. However, much work remains. The FCPS staff recommendation to increase class size by 0.5 students across the board will have a negative impact on the dozens of schools that do not receive the extra teachers to reduce class size. Our FCPS standard pupil-teacher ratios are already unacceptably high. 26.8 elementary school students per teacher, 27.4 in middle, 30.5 in high school, 30.5. This means we are still seeing many actual classes well north of that into the 30s, as you heard our students so eloquently tell you. To some, maybe this does not seem like a real problem, much less a priority. But opposing the 0.5 increase is a priority to the many voices who signed our current class size counts petition, which I urge you to read and to consider. Large classes create problems. They burn out our teachers and increase teacher attrition. According to a national survey, large classes are one of the top 3 reasons teachers leave the profession. Our FCPS 2014 teacher survey also cited class size as a top concern. Large classes result in greater difficulty with classroom management, more focus on discipline, and less time for differentiated instruction. Large classes also result in less teacher feedback on assignments, greater safety hazards, and fewer critical learning activities. I mean, there's simply not enough time for 30 students or more to participate in a quality project-based learning assignment. Attached are numerous possible ways to address the budget gap. I'll cite a few examples of ways you can address the budget gap without increasing class size. First, clawback of student enrollment that may not materialize this fall as projected, and then allocate those positions back to classes with 30 or more students. Second, more equitable paid holidays for FCPS employees, because our teachers are not paid for at least a dozen holidays during the school year that our central staff and administrators are paid. Imagine if you even cut 5 of those paid days, you would save about $3 million. FCPS central department budgets exceed $300 million, and you've only identified $3 million in cuts. These are just a few examples of things you might look at rather than balancing the budget on the backs of our students and teachers. FCPS has an opportunity to be a leader in VA by resisting the efforts underway to increase class sizes. Please consider this petition, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Jim LeMunyon. I'm the father of 3 Fairfax County Public School graduates, husband of a regular substitute teacher who's been doing that for 20 years. And I also serve in the Virginia House of Delegates representing 85,000 of the finest people in Fairfax and Loudoun counties and the Chantilly area and its surrounding areas. I'm here tonight just to associate myself with the remarks that several people have already made related to class sizes. And it would be my hope that you would not adopt the proposal to increase by 0.5. In addition to that, though, I hope you would examine what might be, and I just underscore might, be an opportunity. As was mentioned, I had a bill that would have placed statewide a cap on class sizes at 29 in grades K through 6. And we scored that, as the state does, in terms of budget impact. I was surprised that it was only $5.5 million statewide. We didn't have $5.5 million to earmark out of the budget because we wanted to keep that education budget as big as it could be so that counties like Fairfax could get the $653 million check that we're going to get next year. I understand that. But in doing the math, it seemed, and I just say seems because it was state numbers and perhaps not exact, that a county like Fairfax might be able to achieve that for less than $1 million. And I would just encourage you, if you haven't run the numbers on that, or the people who run those numbers haven't done that for you, I would encourage you to do that, because I think you all know better than I, wherever you come out on this budget, there's going to be some disappointment. I think it would be really powerful to say, if you could say it, that in spite of some of the disappointments, Fairfax County elementary schools will never have a class bigger than 29. See if you can accomplish that. I'm not here to promise you that you can, but there was some indication that maybe that's within the realm of the possible. If you can't, please let me know that too, because if the voters want me back next year, that bill's probably coming back next year, and I do want to get the numbers right. Related to a broader issue, in looking at your budget documents, and again, you know these better than I, it appeared that expenses are rising faster than enrollment, maybe 5% a year versus 1 to 2% for enrollment. If there is any way more that the county, the school division, can leverage the state's purchasing power in any way that it might be done, or if there's some obstacle in the way, please let us know. And in particular, please let me know. I happen to chair the subcommittee on procurement, and a lot of what we look at is ways that local governments can leverage the state's purchasing power to save money so that, in this case, more money can make it to the classroom for student learning and student achievement. Thank you for your service to the people and the students of Fairfax County.
Thank you. David Edelman, followed by Precious Crabtree and Kevin Hickerson.
Good evening, school board members. Glad to be back again. I'm David Edelman. I'm the chair of Invest in Fairfax, which is a coalition of groups and individuals interested in keeping Fairfax County a great place to live. And I want to acknowledge that the continuing financial difficulties that the school board sees themselves in FY 2016, and We are facing some competing budget priorities as usual, and I want to highlight what I believe is a disparate thing that impacts our schools, and that is teacher salaries are no longer competitive with surrounding jurisdictions, as in the Wavy Guide. My experience anecdotally, as I talk to school administrators, teachers, parents, and students, is that some of our best teachers are being lost to counties like Arlington and Loudoun because they're paying more money. And we need to increase salaries to keep us competitive with our surrounding jurisdictions. Since revenue streams to the county have remained in a sluggish environment with low growth, and we have not been able to secure any new sources of revenue, Invest in Fairfax is now exploring some cost-saving measures I'd like to share with you. To this end, a small group of us in Invest in Fairfax have looked at infrastructure and created a memo where we think that maybe tens of millions and maybe more of dollars can be saved. And I would say this would be saved not only on the school side, but also on the county side. I have provided a memo that's much more longer for you to take a look at on these issues. We also believe that the principles of One Fairfax that the county has put forward in terms of coordinating services, in terms of coordinating cost savings, have some opportunity here. I will outline for the audience and for you a couple of the things that we think could be cost saving. In facilities, things like roofing, lighting, solar, and HVAC for energy efficiency. Energy costs come out of the operating budget. Co-locating county and school facilities. One idea I heard was possibly a library with a school. Different types of co-location might save the county some money. Cost savings in transportation. Hybrid and plug-in buses with fossil fuels are no longer something that is cutting edge, but something that's fairly common. I mean, we have the largest bus fleet in America. We could definitely reduce our costs. So to this end, we are recommending a One Fairfax committee to look at these energy savings and ideas in cost savings in facilities and transportation. And the committee would be stakeholders that would report back to the superintendent and the executive director. I hope you take a look at the memo and think of it fondly. Thanks.
Thank you.
I was supposed to be speaker number 2, and can I speak?
Sure, please state your name.
My name is Beth Hey. Okay. Unfair treatment of teachers leads to a decline in education. My name is Beth Hey. I'm a sophomore at McLean High School, and I worked on this presentation with Ania Herrick. My education and the education of 200,000 other students in FCPS has been compromised because teachers' salaries have been frozen. Because of this, many good teachers have left the county to go to Loudoun, Arlington. Over a 30-year career, an FCPS teacher earns around $300,000 less than a teacher at Arlington. Also, many of the teachers who do stay not only have a second job, but a third job. As well, just to support the cost of living. While inflation rises, the payment of teachers stays the same. This takes a major toll on the teachers, and the suffering trickles down to the students because teachers are no longer able to teach to the best of their abilities. Instead of giving their full, undivided attention to teaching the future of America, they have to worry about their second and third job. Their payment is inadequate, and even that is an understatement. My question is, why is the adequate payment of teachers a problem when FCPS is one of the richest school districts in America? Why are teachers being underinvested in? And lastly, why does my education, along with many others, have to suffer? Thank you.
Thank you. We have Precious Crabtree, followed by Kevin Hickerson, and then Keeley Loretta.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Precious Crabtree, and many of you know me well because I speak up when I feel the need to voice concerns shared by my colleagues, but also when I feel something positive in our county should be celebrated. Tonight I'm going to start with something positive. Last month, 2 Peruvian artists visited my school for a week to work with my students and staff. It was an incredible experience, as students not only learned new clay hand-building techniques and how to be freer in their artwork, but they witnessed how artists around the world influence and are influenced by the cultures and environments which they work. Having Pablo and Mary Lou teaching helped us to see how people who are different from us can relate to us and what they see differently, one student shared. Another said being a global artist means you can connect with more people from different places in the world, and you're able to tell stories through your artwork that others are able to connect with. This awesome opportunity got me thinking about how important it is to proactively engage our students with learning experiences that capture their imaginations. And that's not easy, and it becomes harder and harder as our class sizes increase. This is especially important among younger students who require more individualized attention. So I ask tonight that you hold our K2 kids harmless in the class size increase. I have 21 years of experience, and I like to think that I'm a good teacher with strong classroom management skills. Yet this year, I feel I'm addressing more behavioral issues than ever in my lower grades. At times, I feel that I'm constantly in reactive mode, putting one fire out after another. I'm trying to stop my ED students from melting down, help my students who are learning English to understand, keep my energetic students focused, my anxiety-filled students calm, and my insanity intact. My heart breaks a little bit each day knowing that my kids in the middle might be getting left behind because there are so many who demand more of my time. Currently, I have classes with 27 and 28 students in grades 1 and 2. Further, the demands placed on our profession continue to stack up. Teachers are now being made to sit through hour-long CLT meetings, 1 for math and 1 for language arts, every week. This leaves them a day with no planning at all and no breaks. And then the other day, it's a very short time, so it's very hard to get things done during that time. So while we have a budget deficit and we do need to make cuts, we can't afford to balance the budget on the backs of students and teachers and expect a positive outcome. I am grateful for your commitment to improving our salaries and compensation. Since I've divorced, I've worked 2 to 3 extra jobs. But please don't increase class sizes for K2, and please eliminate workload that stifles our creativity and leaves little time to actually plan and implement lessons that support this data. Give us the breathing room and support we need to provide our students with meaningful educational experiences each and every day. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Kevin Hickerson, President of the Fairfax Education Association, and tonight I come to talk to you about what we can do in addition to the pay increases that you are considering for the 2017-2018 school year. I was taught years ago that there are 3 important resources organizations have that they must spend wisely. They are people, money, and time. From the experiences that I've had in FCPS over the last 13 years, I would also add respect as part of the equation. Respect for employees does not just come from pay increases alone, but in conjunction with acknowledging the difficulties of their respective jobs. Our employees are overwhelmed from the stress of their responsibilities with mandates that are both in and out of their control. Elementary specialists teach the enrollment of the entire building, making grades and comments for each of those students on a tight deadline. Special education teachers manage multiple students on a caseload and adhere to laws for IEPs while teaching their students. Our teachers are differentiating instruction to make sure that the children they educate are getting the individual instruction they deserve. Custodians are pushing extra hours of work into already stretched schedules. Bus drivers are picking up extra routes to make sure our students are safely brought to and from school. Instructional assistants are covering classrooms when a substitute is unavailable. Generally, our employees do not bother mentioning the extras they are doing because they are prideful professionals who want to get the job done. That's why employee organizations like FEA exist. We give a voice to the voiceless and help them find and use it. Here are some suggestions from our members that should not cost any money that would have the direct impact on employee morale and allow you to retain more employees. 1. Consider possible changes to the way the collaborative learning teams are being implemented. CLTs are working well in a few buildings, but implementation varies widely across the district and is problematic when teachers do not run the teams. Our CLT groups are experiencing a micromanaging from administrators on CLT meeting times, dates, duration, and agenda and minutes. Administration must allow for teachers to be the professionals and guide their education practice in these meetings. There needs to be a regulation that limits the amount of CLT meetings required by administration and make sure that they are held during normal contract hours. 2. An elementary school master schedule task force must be implemented to create master calendars that make program offerings equitable throughout FCPS in an effort to enhance a portrait of a graduate. Over the last couple weeks, I have been to multiple elementary schools across different regions and pyramids. They all said the same thing. The master calendar is a mess. We need to look at how the regulations on this are actually serving our students, teachers, and administration. Finally, we can and must eliminate bullying in the workplace. While Fairfax County Public Schools is a great place to work, there is still bullying within all classifications of employees. We do not tolerate bullying of our students, and we shall not tolerate it for our employees. Other school districts from around the country have anti-bullying regulations. It is time for us to have them as well. Taking action on these 3 items can have a huge impact on retention and overall employee satisfaction. Increasing pay and maintaining our benefits is commendable and should be continued, but we would like to have a seat at the table for the rest of those issues. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Keeley Loretta, followed by Sarah Spear and Kimberly Adams.
Hello, my name is Keeley Loretta, and I'm a parent of 2 elementary-age students. For the past 5 years, I've worked to help raise education funding at the state and local level, as well as reduce class size. I'm here today again mainly to advocate against increasing class sizes this year. In November 2012, the Washington Examiner ran an article citing Wolf Trap Elementary violated state elementary class caps because the 3rd and 4th grade classes had 37 and 38 students in a math class. My son was in 1st grade at the time in a class of 28 and then 29. I realized then that class size affected all classes and grades and was an issue. The following year, my child was placed in a 2nd grade class of 32 students, which was also above the state cap. Parents complained, and we didn't have a reading specialist, so a 2nd grade teacher was given, but no extra funding. And yet the staffing reserve was in excess, and the school board voted to fund turf fields instead. The following year, in 3rd grade, my child was in a class of 31. The year after that, a class of 30. Finally, with the Regulation 1302.1 coming into effect, my 5th grader is in a class under 25, and my 1st grader is in a class of 29 with an aide. It is the first year that class size has not been a major concern. So I studied why this was happening, and FCPS in 2015, as part of their Save FCPS campaign, put a list of budget savings since the recession. On the chart, a list approximately $48 million was saved by increasing class size over all those years, and another $13 million for reducing staffing reserves. So class size ratios have been increased 3 times since 2009. That is an increase in a ratio of 1.5 students per grade, which for a school of about 600 students means a reduction of 2 teachers. Now our ratios are the highest in the state and the DC metro area. And after 5 years of advocacy and maybe $10 million coming back into the budget, we're now looking at a potential $15 million in cuts again. It also became clear to me that teachers were being affected by these class sizes. Teachers not only had to worry about the workload with increased class sizes, but they also had to worry about whether they have to leave for another school or lose their job. When Karen Garza started in 2013, she put out a questionnaire asking FCPS how FCPS could be improved, and the number 1 request was to reduce class size. That spring, the school board decided to raise class sizes for the 3rd time. And I think this led many parents and residents to become disillusioned with FCPS's budget and requests for additional money. Since that last class size increase, many people have been involved in class size advocacy at the local and state level. Governor McAuliffe has also increased spending for education, And Kathy Hudgens has also supported the meals tax and raises each year. I also ask that FCPS look at project-based learning and how that affects class size, because I think it means that students have less time with teachers with that type of learning. I ask that you reconsider raising class sizes.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarah Spear, and I have a third grader at Flint Hill Elementary. Please consider other ways to balance the budget than raising class sizes again. And more importantly, please ensure that the funds that have been earmarked to alleviate overly large class sizes stays in the budget. Our students are not statistics. When class size formulas change, they can have dramatic effects on individual class sizes and individual students. In first grade, my son was in a class with 29 students and 1 teacher with no aide. Since then, his classes have had 24 students. I volunteer in the classroom, and I can see a huge difference in the classroom management between 24 and 29 students. However, if the earmarked funds for large class sizes disappears, class sizes could balloon again due to the very high Virginia state caps of 35 students. The noise produced in large classrooms makes it difficult to hear and concentrate, particularly for students with special needs or ADHD. How do teachers have meaningful interactions in classrooms with 30+ students? How do they find time to recognize and address issues such as speech problems? Sadly, I found out that they don't. I witnessed classrooms so crowded that the kids are tripping over each other. The kids in the back of the room can't see and don't participate. Some can't read the directions for the work they are supposed to do. How do they get started on most days when there are no volunteers? When classes are this large, their work doesn't get checked. Students give up and resort to copying their neighbors' work because they aren't getting the help they need. With so many kids in the class, it becomes almost impossible for teachers to differentiate. Some students struggle with the basics, and just as many aren't being challenged and cause disruptions. Only 37% of Flint Hill's teachers agree to this statement: class sizes are reasonable, such that teachers have time to meet educational needs of all students. Please find other ways to cut costs or raise money. First, can we look at how the needs-based funding formulas are being applied? I don't recommend cutting classroom funds at high-needs schools. However, do these schools really need to have more custodial and administrative staff compared to low-needs schools of the same size? For example, Annandale Terrace is budgeted to spend $200,000 or 50% more on administrative expenses than Flint Hill, and these schools have almost identical enrollment. Have we looked at out-of-the-box ways of raising funds, such as advertising on all those buses or naming rights for stadiums and auditoriums? The Smithsonian has a very successful public-private partnership for raising funds that could provide us with ideas. I close by asking you to please keep the funding to alleviate overly large class sizes that could result in the proposed cuts. Thank you.
Thank you. Kimberly Adams, followed by Melanie Maron and Lindsay Latham.
Good evening, Dr. Lockard, Chairman Evans, and school board members. My name is Kimberly Adams, and I speak to you today as the president of the Fairfax County Council of PTAs. This will be my last speech to you as the president of the County Council, as I resign my position effective this evening to seek elected office. I thank you for all the support you've given me, but most especially our County Council and the PTA leaders and members across Fairfax County Public Schools. And I know that you will continue to work with the president who follows me. As you continue your deliberations on the budget items at hand, I hope you will consider several things. The constraints you have faced in this current budget cycle, with reduced revenues and a smaller transfer from the county, have hindered your ability to fund our programs fully. We understand that this is not your fault, but that a confluence of circumstances has led to a shortfall. The work that you have undertaken through community outreach, hearings such as this, community meetings, and other community outreach has allowed for a voice from all community stakeholders, and we thank you for that interaction. We expect that cuts will be made to Fairfax County Public Schools, and that several of those cuts will likely impact the school system's future and possibly the county's. First and foremost, you must know that parents stand beside your educators and those who work in our schools, asking that you continue to compensate them and value their work. Quality teachers will remain your strongest asset. We know that this board is facing challenges in hiring adequate numbers of teachers each year, and we also hope that you will take a very close look at hiring practices, as recently noted in the media. Our parent community also understands that increases in fees and possible changes to programmatic offerings may be considered in the coming weeks. We hope that you will balance any of your actions so that not one single sector of our schools are affected, but a balanced approach leads to cuts that will be felt system-wide and provide a smaller impact in each area of the budget. We also support class size issues across our county, and we know that so many schools across our nation face similar effects. Lower class size is shown to help our students be successful. The Fairfax County Council of PTAs understands that class size has been an issue for many, many years. We've seen years where student class increases were more than 1.5 to 2 students. We heard that in the budget discussions, a 0.5 class student increase may be necessary, but that you are looking at all possible options. We are aware that several thousand students in our schools have seen class sizes at or near 30 in every year of their career. We believe very strongly that the quality of our schools has been driving our county's success. We know that you believe this as well, and we understand the challenges that lie ahead in your tough decisions. Continue to keep an open mind regarding questions and concerns from the parents and others who speak out at these hearings. Should you have any need to engage the council further, we welcome a dialogue, especially around future budgets. Thank you for your time and the talents that you have and the work that you do every year on behalf of all students and families in Fairfax County.
Thank you.
Hello, board members. I am Melanie Maron, and my oldest child is in first grade, and my youngest is in preschool. I hope by now that I am familiar to you as a critical friend of FCPS, someone who cares deeply about our school system and seeks to be an ally, and also someone who's critical about how to make it better, or be analytical about how to make it better, while offering to help to do so. Since I began leading FCPS in November 2015, to date, I have learned so much about how this district functions and the countless hours of hard work, thought, and service that contribute to the rich resources and opportunities available to our children. I have talked with and listened to families, educators, administrators, county board members, and yourselves. As I reflect back on the gains and losses during this year and a half, one conclusion is clear as ever. Our district needs a stronger systems approach to meet our needs now and our planned needs in the future. Our system now looks like a Frankenstein, where well-meaning Band-Aids have been applied for years to disconnected parts. Our budget process reinforces these disconnects and brings us to the crossroads we are at now. So here are 4 ideas on how to streamline and evolve our system that are all related to budgeting and planning. First, define the programs and services that create a world-class system for the most children and trim the ones that don't meet those criteria. We must be honest about which programs can leverage economies of scale. We simply cannot keep all the programs we have in their current form. Keep the excellence, but streamline it so that more benefits are realized, particularly the benefits of smaller class sizes. Redesign programs to evolve as our community does. For instance, I often hear how, designed many years ago, AAP is now something that hinders enrollment in neighborhood schools while promoting overcrowding in others. Or the program skims much of the top performing portion of the student body to the detriment of the remaining students. We're not the same district we used to be, and our programs must evolve. Third, plan and budget to appropriately staff our school and district offices. We need to better prepare for the vacancies so our children and adults aren't left in a lurch when people leave. Clearly, we need to offer competitive salaries to our educators. And at the district level, it's critical to ensure that no one person holds all the responsibility in any one area. We need to prepare for seamless transitions and longevity of work. And finally, implementing innovative and successful programs district-wide. We need central oversight to ensure that new, successful programs are consistently replicated and supported district-wide. Too much is dependent on the knowledge and desire of the principal, the educators, or the parents, and that does not make for equity across the school district. Just one example that touches on all of these systemic needs is our Get to Green program, which promotes school district sustainability and engaging students in environmental action. This is an innovative way for students to learn and is truly the hallmark of a world-class education. It just received 2 national acclaims within the last few weeks. Yet we have just one full-time staff person leading the initiative, and now she is departing July 1. So the work has evolved, but we need to maintain this district-wide view. I hope that that does not happen to that program in particular. I hope these ideas are helpful, and thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the school board, Dr. Lockhart, and support staff. My name is Lindsay Latham, and I'm the secretary for the newly founded Special Education PTA, a proud mom of a special needs little boy, and I'm his advocate. We understand the enormous pressure put on this board in these difficult times. As a special needs parent, I understand having to squeeze a budget to make ends meet, and I truly understand what sacrifice means. I would happily pay a fee for my son to be able to participate in extracurricular activities. I would pay that fee for 10 children. But that is a faraway dream for my family and families like ours. When my son was diagnosed with a brain malformation, everyone told us, don't leave Fairfax County, he's going to get a great education. So I am shocked and heartbroken to hear that there are members of the board that would like to take deeper dives into the special education budget. All of us understand that FCPS's obligation to provide students with disabilities a free, appropriate public education necessarily requires it to provide services that drive up the per-pupil cost for those students. According to the school board's budget documents since 2006, there has been an overall increase of 8.7% for special education services in FCPS, and a dramatic increase of 28.7% in Level 2 services. There are no signs that this trend will not continue, and as FCPS noted in its response to a question from a school board member, simply maintaining the special education budget level with FY17 cost per pupil would impact FCPS's ability to serve an increase in the student population or number of services required. Cuts are never easy, and balancing a budget with a major funding gap is understandably stressful. But making that funding gap with cutting special education service not only hurts our children, it hurts our amazing teachers and support staff. The Fairfax County SEPTA will not shy away from keeping our membership, families, and educators informed about the budget and the possible impact that might have. As expressed by our president, Diane Cooper-Gould, at last week's school board budget meeting, our organization is grateful for the support already shown by members of the board. We thank the individuals who worked hard on projecting the increases in special education enrollment and necessary services for the upcoming school year. We thank the board for proposing to fund those increases. The Fairfax County SEPTA encourages each of you to adopt the previously approved level of funding on May 25th. I ask you as a mom, advocate, and human, do not balance the budget on the backs of one of the most vulnerable populations that the county services, our children with special needs. Thank you.
I have Toby Latham, followed by Diane Cooper-Gould and Marcia Donovan.
Members of the school board, Dr. Lockhart, good evening. My name is Toby Latham. On behalf of the Fairfax County Special Education PTA, I thank the school board for this opportunity to comment on the FY18 budget. SEPTA understands and appreciates that FCPS's staffing projections for special education services already takes into account the growth in services that typically occurs during the school year. We believe, however, that these projections will be tested if the school board failed to account for the change resulting from the United States Supreme Court's recent decision in a case called Andrew F. Before Andrew F., FCPS could satisfy its obligation to provide students with disabilities a free, appropriate public education, or FAPE, by offering some educational benefit through individualized education programs, or IEPs. In OS versus Fairfax County School Board, a decision that issued in 2015, the Fourth Circuit explained that the standard requires FCPS to provide students in special education a benefit that is more than minimal or trivial, but the court did not indicate how far above minimal or trivial FCPS must go to provide a FAPE. Significantly, the Fourth Circuit rejected the contention that the IDEA required FCPS to apply a heightened, meaningful educational benefit standard in determining which services it would provide students with disabilities. So this was the state of affairs when the fiscal year 2018 special education budget was drafted. FCPS had to provide students with disabilities some educational benefit, but not necessarily a meaningful one. SEPTA believes that the standard applicable in this jurisdiction changed on March 22nd when the Supreme Court unanimously rejected in Andrew F. the contention that the IDEA only requires the state to provide access to instruction sufficient to confer some minimal level of educational benefit. And we urge the school board to determine its obligation, if any, to provide additional services under that standard before it looks to the special education department for funding cuts. With respect to the fiscal year 2018 budget, the SEPTA request is simple. On May 25th, adopt the previously approved funding for special education. And I strayed a bit from my prepared remarks because I want to make a personal note with my remaining time. As a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom, I know all too well the tragedy that will occur whenever a community fails to work toward eliminating the stigma of disabilities and decides to react to crises instead of trying to prevent them. That the school board would acknowledge in a document issued just yesterday that a particular cut could affect students at risk of crisis and thereby increase referrals for private school placement, in my opinion, is heartbreaking. I know we can't promise our children perfection, and I don't expect that of any of you, but we must strive to do better and to do better and to do better and to do better until we get as close to perfection as we possibly can. We owe that to each child in the school district, including those children with disabilities, and I simply ask that in fiscal year 2019 budget process that you not balance the budget on the backs of students with disabilities, as they already belong to an underappreciated population. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Cooper Gold.
Good evening. I'm Diane Cooper Gould, President of Fairfax County SEPTA, and it's good to see you all again. Education funding is an emotional topic. I believe we all in this room want the best outcomes for our kids. We know that you are laboring under very difficult conditions, and we want to thank you for the careful consideration that each one of you confronts. Sometimes talking about budget numbers can become abstract, and that the reality of what the students, parents, and teachers experience at home and at school is lost a little bit in the thinking of numbers. Budget decisions must be made with the understanding that current trends show that disability and special education rates are rising. As of 2014, the CDC announced that autism rates have increased 30% in 2 years. Autism increases are the fastest growing special education category in FCPS. By preserving the special education budget, you help to mitigate the effects that these increases in need have on our students across all educational settings. In Monday's budget work session, it was announced that the Department of Special Services funding would need to be reduced by $300,000. The impact of those cuts, even as service demands rise, will be felt acutely in the classroom. To achieve that reduction, the following cuts, among others, will be made. Reduction of materials and supplies impacting the ability to support schools with unanticipated special education program needs. Decreased hourly support and other expenditures impacting the ability to provide short-term substitutes to schools experiencing students in crisis, thereby risking an increase in referrals for private school placement, which in turn negatively impacts inclusion efforts and FAPE. Reduced consultation and support to new special education teachers, which helps them with assessments, planning, adapting instruction, and behavior management. This loss is particularly tragic in our opinion, as we currently have a critical staffing need for special education teachers in Fairfax County. Previous Fairfax County public school cuts over the past several years have already eliminated 4 new teacher mentor coaches from 10 down to 6. Now, due to these current cuts, the DSS will be losing yet another. Next year, we will have only 5 mentor coaches to assist special ed teachers. How will we continue to recruit and retain special ed teachers when we remove their support system? General ed and special ed children are negatively impacted when inclusion is implemented without the staffing, support, training, and mentoring needed for their success. On behalf of SEPTA, I'd like to extend the offer to work hand in hand with the school board, budget task force, and FCPS as we finalize this budgeting cycle and move forward with future ones. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Marcia Donovan, followed by Alicia Sutherland and Jeffrey Longo.
Good evening, Dr. Locker and members of the board. I want to thank all of you who had recommended to our active superintendent to include parent liaisons benefits in 2018 budget. For many years, people told us how important parent liaisons were for the schools, how schools could function without parent liaisons, and many other things, but we never got anything. FCPS lost excellence and experienced parent liaisons all those years to another organizations because they didn't get benefits. In last year, as a superintendent, Dr. Dale recognized how important parent liaisons were in helping FCPS to achieve the school mission, to increase student achievements, to increase graduation numbers, to increase number of students who continue their education after high school. Dr. Dale included all parent liaisons, and the board was going to approve. When we returned from winter vacation, we got the news that we were going to receive only health benefits. For me, it was a surprise and huge disappointment. So I started to investigate what happened. I discovered that somebody told Dr. Dale and the school board members that we didn't want the benefits, which one, of course, wasn't true. As you all know, I have participated in many board meetings, and I got the idea that people don't know what parent liaisons do. Our first mission is to bridge between school system and parents to help both sides to understand each other. Many parents don't know the FCPS, how FCPS system work. They don't know about such a difficult subject like special ed. What is special ed? What their children need for graduation, what ESOL is, what SOL is, what their kids need to be accepted in college, and etc. We also are helping mentor the students. Parent liaisons not only help academically, but also connect the families to resources in the community that help whole family. If the environment at home is not good, students cannot come to school and focus and be able to learn. Last year, a student had a little altercation, and he broke his nose very badly. He had surgery, but he didn't have insurance. I was able to find a place in DC to do all his treatment and the surgery for free. But it was far, and the mother could not have a car for him. So I made sure to have a transportation to help. Parent liaisons wear many hats and help families to be able, and the students, to come to school and learn. Speaking another language is not important, but experience is the most important. As experienced parent liaison,
Yes, could you please finish up?
I'm concluding. I have 2 lines. And I have helped many students regardless the race, language, culture, religion, country of origin. Please approve parent liaisons benefits for 2018 because FCPS need to retain experienced liaisons to help the school system and the students. Thank you.
Alicia Sutherland, followed by Jeffrey Longo and Sydney Benavides.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Alicia Sutherland.
I bring to your attention tonight the budget issue that relates to schools' inability to hire certified teachers to backfill teachers who take a leave of absence and attract experienced, qualified long-term substitutes due to the significant reduction in pay for long-term and retired teacher substitutes. I've learned that when a teacher takes a leave of absence, the school cannot advertise to require a certified teacher. The school can only advertise for a long-term substitute. I've also learned that pay for long-term substitutes was cut recently to where it's not worthwhile for certified teachers who may be retired or otherwise looking for a long-term sub position to step in. My daughter is in 4th grade at Haycock Elementary School. After starting the school year in September, her teacher went out on maternity leave in November. After a series of day-to-day substitutes, a long-term substitute was hired who was not a certified teacher, but a parent who loved education and wanted to help out. It soon became evident that she had difficulties managing the class. Misbehaving and bullying occurred in the classroom on a regular basis. Some children began performing poorly academically, and at least a third of the class began to receive outside tutoring. Students formed negative attitudes towards school. Famous last words we parents told ourselves were, "Things aren't going great right now, but it'll all be okay because our teacher's coming back." The week before we understood our teacher would return, we were told she decided not to come back for the rest of the year. Again, the school could not post an ad requiring a certified teacher to take her place because she's entitled to hold her contract for the rest of the year. Only a long-term substitute could be requested whose requirements include something like a background check and a few college courses. We're now on our 3rd long-term substitute if you count another parent who used to teach 5th grade in Texas, jumping in to save us from more day-to-day substitutes while a new long-term sub could be identified. All this at the great school of Haycock, known in our region for its standards of academic excellence. If teachers continue to have the right to take a leave of absence for up to an entire year, the least that should be done is to allow the school to advertise and pay for a certified teacher to teach the class during that leave of absence. The current reduced pay makes it extremely difficult to attract long-term substitutes who are certified teachers. Even in my case, we ended up having 2 parents take over the class. We should not have to rely on otherwise unemployed parents to fill this void. I recognize FCPS has many pressing priorities. The April town hall meeting I attended enlightened us about serious budget issues facing FCPS. I told my story then too, but I wasn't the first person to raise these concerns. Others shared similarly negative experiences when their teacher took a leave of absence. There come times when teachers, like other professionals, need to take a leave of absence. However, please restore the pay for long-term and retired teacher substitutes so that schools can attract and pay for qualified teachers to take their place. Thank you for your time and attention.
In 2016, this board joined with the Board of Supervisors in the One Fairfax resolution. One Fairfax called for an intentional racial and social equity policy that would provide the direction and means to eliminate disparities. This year, you joined with the Board of Supervisors again in another resolution to affirm that Fairfax County is a welcoming community, an apparent response to current U.S. immigration enforcement policy. With all this talk about racial and social equity and being welcoming, you would think that the proposed budget would be as equitable as possible. Yet the proposed raise to the elementary school class size floor is regressive. It's inequitable, and it's wholly unacceptable. It balances the budget on the backs of the poor, the immigrants, and the Hispanic children in this county, and those who are their neighbors. All 8 elementary schools that would have been affected or would be affected have common themes. They have an over 60% free and reduced lunch student population. And it doesn't stop at 60%. It goes up to 87%. The staffing ratios only go up to 40%. So we're talking about 60 to 87% free and reduced student lunch populations in these schools. The majority of the students are minorities in these schools, typically from immigrant families where English is not the primary language spoken at home. And all of these schools are in the bottom 25% of Fairfax County's elementary school test scores. And that's important. We need to, when we talk about class sizes, we need to keep an eye on the metrics here. And, you know, the metrics are our test scores, right? So these are high-need schools. They have extra resources now because
it would be inequitable not to provide the extra resources and allow the achievement gap to explode even more than it is now. At Sleepy Hollow Elementary, my child's elementary school, and one of those affected by the cut, the staff are overwhelmed by the need. It took the first half of the year just to get all the students in my son's kindergarten class speaking basic English. The school counselor is canceling appointments because of the workload. 504 mitigation plans that were discussed with staff and teachers several months ago are just now being implemented. And next month is the end of the school year. These are the schools that you're targeting with cuts. If you pass a budget that includes the class size floor raise, rip up this resolution. Because you guys obviously don't care about equity in Fairfax County public schools. If we have to make cuts, we need to make them in a way that affects the entire county equally. My name is Jeff Longo. I'm the president of Sleepy Hollow Manor Citizens Association in Mason District, and a poll of my neighbors showed they overwhelmingly approve this message.
I remind speakers to be respectful. Sydney Benavides, followed by Christian Barbosa and Carolyn Kenny.
Dear Fairfax County School Board members, my name is Cindy Benavides, and I'm here today to talk about including benefits for parent liaisons. My story starts more than 33 years ago when my parents immigrated from Honduras to Southeast LA. While riding a public bus, my mom heard two tourists talk about Fairfax County public schools. And since she had already moved from Honduras to LA, she thought, why not move to Fairfax County? She thought about our education for my older brother and I. We arrived in Springfield and attended Lynbrook Elementary School. In 5th grade, we moved to the city of Alexandria. I excelled in academia, and yet I will never forget that my high school counselor told me that I should consider joining the military or taking up a trade. Although these are excellent choices, and in fact, my brother joined the U.S. Marines, I had always dreamed of going to college. It was that parent liaison who, when she saw the tears in my eyes and my dream shattered, took the time to encourage me and tell me, "Si puedes, yes you can." Due to this one single human being, I went on to apply to more than 3 colleges and was accepted into all of them with partial or full scholarships. The parent liaison went beyond her job description to ensure that I did not fall through the cracks. It was due to the parent liaison, Ms. Lupe, that I can stand here before you today. I can also say that I have had the blessing and privilege to serve in appointed positions in state government, serve at the national level, volunteer on various boards in our community, and now serve as the National Director of Civic Engagement and Community Mobilization for one of the oldest and largest national Latino civil rights organizations in our country, LULAC. One parent liaison set in motion a series of events that have allowed me to contribute back at the local, state, and national level. One parent liaison. The role that parent liaisons play in our school system is one that is not fully integrated, as it does not include full benefits, including retirement, accrued time leave, and pay increases. I want the school board to consider for a minute and pause. What would you do if you were only in a position and were allowed to work a set number of hours so that you could not receive health care, retirement, and other benefits such as sick leave? Parent liaisons positions are disenfranchised employees in comparison to other positions that do not work 40 hours per week, yet receive the full slate of benefits. Parent liaisons play a critical role in not only being the bridge builder between parents who may not be fluent in English, but also help to increase graduation rates and provide guidance on how to navigate the school system. I will conclude my remarks with this. As a school system that seeks to improve upon its current standards, it's important to compensate parent liaisons and not renegade them to have standards. This is especially important as Fairfax County continues to go as a student majority-minority body. We live in 2017, and we're here in our own beloved Fairfax County, creating a second-class public school worker. Parent liaisons should be compensated for their hard work, time, labor, and sacrifices. For the parent liaisons in the room, thank you for your dedication and encouragement. Thank you for your sacrifices.
For you, the school board member who have to make so many hard choices, thank you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you. Christian Barboso, followed by Carolyn Kenny, and then Ruby Nickdoe.
Good evening. My name is Christian Barbosa. I'm speaking tonight to raise an objection to budgeting any money for the renaming of Jeb Stuart High School that is going to cost an estimated $1 million. Do not spend unused year-end fiscal year 17 money. Do not include renaming Jeb Stuart High School in your FY18 budget deliberations. Do not divert bond or budget money to change the name of my high school. There are pressing needs at Jeb Stuart as well as many other schools that you've seen tonight. This is not a penny. There's not a penny of discretionary money that we can afford to spend on this purely political action that offers no tangible improvement to the student body or to the school's community. The job of Fairfax County School Board is to educate, not to settle personal political scores. Polls taken of my neighborhood and the students of Jeb Stuart High found that the movement to change the school's name is supremely unpopular. Yet a shrouded and dishonest process to force a name change in the school has been at play through an ad hoc committee that has been carefully and unsteadily stacked against the interests of the community. The folks who want to change the name of my school have been lobbying for 2 years. The result is increased tensions and an atmosphere of academic intimidation and disruption that frankly did not exist in those halls at any time before. I'm wondering how much money, school staff time and expense has already been spent on this ad hoc committee. For that matter, how much money has been spent in the past 2 years by the school board on name change related activities, including the dollars spent behind the scenes. Please, I ask that you do not spend any more money in the limited school funds on this unwanted and unnecessary exercise. I've become aware of misleading testimonies and twisted misrepresentations of facts that have been used to advance the name of the school change agenda over the 2 years. I'm also aware that a small number of students have tried to represent themselves as the voice of the student body as a whole, but your very own research shows that Jeb Stuart students do not want a name change. How much money was spent on your research? Why is there even more money being considered to pursue a name change that was vastly rejected by the students and the local community? Just yesterday, May 15th, an event was announced on the FCPS website for an alleged community meeting about the name change. It is to be held this Thursday, May 18th at Jeb Stuart High School. Yesterday, the folks who created the petition to further the goal of changing the name back in 2015 sent a notice to the 35,000 plus signatories from all over the country, inviting them to attend our local community meeting. By regulation, the name change is to be determined by the affected Stuart Pyramid community. But now people traveling from anywhere were asked to and encouraged to cross state lines to show up what will now amount to a one-sided name change demonstration at Jeb Stuart High School. This is backhanded, this is unjust, this is unsafe. It's at the expense of my neighborhood. I'm extremely concerned that advancing this local event to those far outside the community who would be prone to letting their passions get the best of them will create an unmanageable and negligently unsafe event. I'm asking you to cancel what should have been a community meeting at Jeb Stuart High School on May 18th. Do not bankroll what might be a contentious and unsafe situation. Do not endanger my community and my neighborhood. I object special interest groups have been and will be given access to intrude on my community and our decision process. I object to any money whatsoever being spent on a name change for Jeb Stuart High School. Please focus on educating students. Focus on giving students the tools needed for success. Do not squander taxpayer money on a name change that will achieve neither. Everyone else in this room tonight has been begging you and telling you that they need money. I'm asking you, please, not to spend any money. Sounds like a slam dunk.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Kenny. I am the special education lead teacher at Timberlane Elementary and a member of the newly chartered Fairfax County Special Education PTA, or SEPTA. I love my students, I love my colleagues, and I love my families. I do not, however, always love my job. In September, we began the school year short 2 special education teachers, one for self-contained enhanced autism and one for Category A general curriculum support. We finally got a Category A teacher in October, just in time for her to take over for a teacher's maternity leave, as no long-term sub could be secured. In January, we thought we had enough Category A teachers. This was in time for the flood of newly identified students. I had a meeting this morning with the special education team, less than 6 weeks before the end of the year, to look at schedules and determine how we will serve our newly eligible students. We were unable to come to a suitable solution. We've been told that staffing will probably be even tighter next year. We will likely each have caseloads over at least 2 grade levels, which means 2 curriculums to manage, multiple teachers with whom to plan, possibly 5 or 6 SOL assessments for which to prepare. Every year that I have been a special education teacher, my responsibilities have grown. Beyond increased caseloads, it has been increased IEP requirements and paperwork, more time-consuming educational testing, taking over for eligibility, taking over for transportation. The list sometimes seems endless. It is well known that there is a special education teacher shortage across this country. I think the assumption is that it's because students with special needs are difficult to teach. I'm here to tell you that it is not the kids. It is never the kids that drive special educators out of teaching. Special education teachers leave when they no longer have the resources and support to do their job. They leave when they no longer have the time to plan and meet with general education teachers, no longer have time to talk to a parent, no longer have time to have that inspiring conversation with a student. We leave when we no longer believe that we are helping our children. I am proud to be a product of Fairfax County Schools and even prouder to be a teacher. I hope that FCPS will continue to be a national role model for education of all students, especially our most vulnerable population. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Ruby Nicodeo, followed by Ernie Wells and Sarah Mattingly.
Okay, let's save not only money, but parental rights and children's lives. How, you ask? By no longer funding sex education, otherwise known as Family Life Education, FLE. Let's flee from FLE for the following 5 reasons. Number 1, parents no longer have control. Even when students have been opted out of FLE, teachers are finding creative ways to circumvent this by teaching students abnormal and aberrant sexual behavior to students in non-FLE classes. As pointed out here recently by one student who spoke out at a board meeting, she was mentally assaulted with a class promoting homosexuality during her math class, of all things. Number 2, it subverts parental authority. As you have heard from a parent at a recent school board meeting, even when told by this board that 1450 policy would not be implemented, a mother was surprised and angered to learn that a gender-confused boy was now using the girls' bathroom. To protect her daughter's privacy, she was forced to take her daughter out of school. Number 3, FLE teaches perverse, aberrant behavior. As pointed out during many previous meetings by parents and by a JMU student who proclaimed he was homosexual, he was thankful that he was taught anal sex and encouraged this board that this type of sex should be taught to students at an earlier age. Number 4, sex education is harmful to children. As I pointed out in the beginning of this year, Dr. Angel's psychoanalytic study of sex education has shown much harm to children. It exploits and abuses them. It breaks down children's mental barriers of shame, disgust, and morality that are natural inborn mental dams that control base sexual urges, leaving themselves open to pregnancies, abortions, perversions, suicides, and psychological as well as physical venereal diseases that are epidemic in today's youth. Number 5, sex education stunts students' ability to be educated. Dr. Angel pointed out in the same study that scholastic tests done on today's sexually educated 6 to 12-year-olds indeed show that these students have accomplished less scholastically than pre-sex education students. He said prior to the establishment of sex education programs, educators acted as though they seemed to realize that involving the child in sexual matters made the child uneducable, and they made every effort to avoid concerning the child with sexual matters. He continues, the scholastic problems in today's schools cannot be corrected by spending more money for buildings, equipment, and teachers. They can only be corrected by removing the sex education interferences which makes students uneducable. For the above 5 reasons, we should not fund sex education. We need to flee from FLE.
Thank you. Ernie Wells, followed by Sarah Mattingly and Michael Lyon. All right, so Ernie's not here. Sarah Mattingly, Michael Lyon, and Marcia St. John Cunning. Marcia, you're next. It's Marcia. It's Marcia.
That's nice when someone knows me. Good evening, Dr. Lockhart, members of the school board, and FCPS staff. First and foremost, I want to thank the school board and everyone that has supported them throughout this extremely challenging budget year. I particularly want to thank the school board for approving an amendment to finally begin investing in parent liaisons by putting them on a unified pay scale and providing the same benefits to those who work 30+ hours a week as an office assistant, a custodian, and other contracted employees. My name is Marcia St. John Cunning. I am the proud mother of 3 FCPS graduates. I have been a parent liaison for 17 years, and many of you know that I am standing here on behalf of all the families and students that cannot be with us tonight. They are either working their 2nd or 3rd job, don't have access to transportation, can't afford to have someone watch their children, or quite simply are too afraid to come to a public gathering. On their behalf, I ask you to keep one central idea in mind as you move forward in your final budget consideration: equity. Not only in its common definition of fairness, but also in its meaning to hold equity in a common stock. In this case, our collective common stock is in the Fairfax County public school system, and every student and employee deserves to be an equitable stakeholder. When you are prioritizing where budget dollars will go, please look at our neediest, most vulnerable student population. They are the 28% receiving free and reduced lunch, the 17% receiving ESOL services, and the 13% receiving special education services. In the front lines, 57% of our principals are making an investment by providing supplemental funding out of their own school budgets to ensure these stakeholders receive the parent liaison support they need. And believe me, the return they receive on their investment is priceless, as evidenced by some of the testimony you have heard and will hear tonight. However, increasing hours is not enough. Fairfax County schools have to treat the parent liaison position as the professional position that it is. I doubt that there is a position within the FCPS workforce that is so critical and still remains classified as a temporary hourly position without benefits or pay scale adjustments. Think about it. The majority of parent liaisons are highly educated and/or experienced, dual or multilingual immigrant minorities themselves. That is what makes them so effective at working with all segments of the population. Every educator knows the most powerful way to teach is to lead by example. Please have the courage to lead by example and bring equity to the parent liaison position by keeping the amendment in place in the budget. I urge you to hear the voices of those that can't be here tonight, to lead by example and ensure all students and employees truly hold an equitable stake in our common stock, our school system. Thank you.
We have Elena Rodriguez, followed by Dave Swan and Catherine Stark. You came late, so I'm sorry. Oh, I skipped over your name. My apologies, please. Would you mind letting him go? He was ahead of you. Thank you. Either way. All right. Thank you, Mr. Lyon. My apology.
Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Elena Rodriguez. I work at Mount Vernon Woods Elementary School, a school very much like the gentleman before, I think his name was Mr. Longo, described. I think we have more of an 80% minority, of which over 60% is Spanish-speaking families. In my role as a parent liaison, as an hourly employee working for Fairfax County, I wear many hats. Not only do I work with every family, I work with every team of the school, striving to promote, advocate, and bridge the gap between the school and home, on the front lines, every day, as the eyes and ears of the school and administration. Some of the hats that I wear are on my little attachment. I work in the front office. I'm a bilingual attendance secretary. I'm a bilingual office assistant. I work as a bilingual clinical aide and assistant to the nurse. I work with registration, with Head Start, with FECP, kindergarten registration, transfers. I work with the SPED staff. I work with AAP. I work with the behavioral specialist, the counselors, the school psychologist, the social worker. We're a community school. I work with a Capital Food Bank. We have the first Wednesday of the month, Family Market. We have Saturday Academy. We just completed that we had for about 4.5 months to try to raise our SOL scores. I work with the cafeteria people because I call on deficit accounts. On school lunch, on student lunches. I work with the teachers, parent-teacher conferences, translating flyers. I put them in Gov Delivery. I'm an administrator on the account. In all my dealings, I have a multi-advocate role. I'm a school advocate, a teacher advocate, a student advocate, a family parent advocate. I advocate for the administration, the staff, the school. In all my work and my dealings with families, I advocate on the part of the students, ensuring they are supported and needed. I'm the one that when a new student starts, I take them to their classroom, introduce them to their teacher. I make sure they're sitting to another student that speaks Spanish. Up until about a month ago, I've had between 1 to 3 students per week coming from Central America, where I have 3 file cabinet drawers with backpacks and a full office of donated supplies, and I give them everything that they need. I advocate on the part of the parents, encouraging them as co-educators for their student success to attend full functions. I attend all the school functions as a parent liaison, as an interpreter. My question to the board is, how is it after 30 years that you're going to have these people as hourly positions? Normally when you start working for a company, sure, for short term, maybe, to see if you're going to work out, to see if it's going to be a good fit. Are we a good fit after 30 years? I mean, are we doing a good job? I mean, honestly, this is discrimination.
Hello, my name is Mike Lyon. I'm from Basin District. I've lived there 27 years and have a 6th grader at Glasgow. I'm here because Glasgow is simply getting too big, and it's facing too many challenges, and we need your help to help address those problems. I'm concerned because the problems of the Mason schools are pushing us to a tipping point. My middle-class neighbors are moving out, and families with kids are not moving in. And without us, the school district in Mason is going to go down further. So we need to have solutions. Glasgow is already the largest middle school in the state of Virginia and has grown 20% in the last 5 years. Probably will reach 2,000 before the end of this decade, and we'll have a whole set of trailers coming this summer. So I'm here to ask you to find solutions now, because if you delay, the problems will get harder and more expensive to solve. I have a few practical solutions I'd like to suggest. First, we need to have more incentive pay to keep the best teachers at the most challenging schools. So my suggestion is any school that's rated 5 or lower, you implement a system of incentives for maybe a 10 to 15% bonus for those teachers, so we can attract the best teachers to the most challenging environments. Second, Glasgow and schools like it need better tools to handle disciplinary problems. When you have overcrowding, that exacerbates disciplinary problems. So we need to give students and their parents' due process, but at some point we need to be able to move kids that are the most challenging out of these overcrowded schools so that the other students can learn. Third, we just need to recognize that Glasgow is too big and it's just going to get bigger. We see what's going on in the middle schools. That's all flowing up to Glasgow. It's getting too big. I know you don't have the money, but we need another middle school in Mason District. You just have to plan for that and recognize that. Fourth, if you don't, you need to look at your own One Fairfax resolution, which one of my neighbors in Sleepy Hollow alluded to earlier, which talks about promoting equity-driven approach to diversity. I agree with that. If we're going to do that, there's really only one way to do it. It's not a good word. The word is busing. I grew up in Evanston, Illinois, where Northwestern University is, and we had busing when I was a kid. It wasn't perfect, but it did address the problem of inequity within our school system. As the Supreme Court ruled in Brown, separate is not equal, but that's what's happening in our county right now. Finally, I just want to talk briefly about the work plan that was approved or voted on in February. There's a lot of good elements in that work plan about better school planning, especially for new development. But what it really doesn't address is legacy problems. In our area, we have a lot of legacy properties that have been misappropriated by landlords to rake in the cash by overcrowding them and leaving the taxpayers with the bill. That's what's happened. I think that we need to add to that work plan another element that looks at practical issues like occupancy level, zoning, safety issues in these legacy properties so that we can align population growth with the resources that we have in an area. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Dave Swan, followed by Catherine Stark.
Members of the school board, Dr. Lockhart, the FCPS leadership, and most importantly, the support employees of this outstanding school board. I am Dave Swan, the chairman of the Support Services Employees Advisory Council. The efforts of over 8,000 professionals represented by the SSEAC work hand in hand with some of the finest teaching staff to produce remarkable results from our students. Our council recognizes the need to hire and retain the finest educators possible. In fact, we insist on it. We also believe strongly in the school board's Ignite initiative that seeks to ensure equity among all employee groups. Further, we recognize how difficult your job is. It's not easy to meet all the goals and balance the budget. I've been on both of the budget task force programs, and I know how much fun that can be. It is with these things in mind that we have proposed an adjustment to Dr. Lockhart's last proposed effort to close the budget gap. We propose that all employees receive an MSA this year, not just the teachers. We suggest that all employees' step increase be delayed by 2 months. We've done it before. Our finance department has calculated that this would save $8.8 million on this next budget year. This would be enough to offset the proposed elimination of the MSA for non-teachers and provide funds to recognize an MSA for those who've reached the top of their scale. Who are these non-teachers? Every employee that works for Dr. Ramey, Jeff Plattenberg, Mary Beth Luftglass, and Kristen Michael. This school board constantly praises the employee teams from these leaders for outstanding and exemplary work that is vital to the success of this school system. Our proposal would leave in place the new Teacher STEP program to be initiated on July 1st so that our principals can confidently recruit the finest for our schools using the new pay scale. This proposal would establish equity among all employee groups and confirm this school board's desire to strengthen the Ignite initiative. To paraphrase Dr. Lockhart, together, school board, teacher, non-teacher, it's possible. I want to thank you on behalf of the SSEAC for your service, your consideration, and your support.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Catherine Stark. When I began working for Fairfax County Public Schools in 2006, the county had a wonderful reputation and a reasonable teacher salary, health coverage, and a retirement plan. The following year, when the recession hit, the state and subsequently Fairfax County significantly reduced education funding. You speak of a tough budget year. However, I have suffered a tough budget decade. This year, Fairfax County is proposing a teacher step increase and cost of living adjustment of 1%. However, this comes to the teachers at the cost of reduced staffing from increased class size, increased health costs, and the restructuring of our retirement compensation, resulting in a loss of earnings on contributions to the ERFC. This is not just for new hires as shown in your presentation, but a 1% reduction in earnings for vested teachers hired after 2001, and a 2% reduction for teachers with 5 or less years of experience. If you look long term, the money you are taking will result in teachers actually making less money over the span of our careers. In 2015, school board member Kathy Smith said, and I quote, "In recent years, teacher pay has lagged in Fairfax County compared to neighboring school districts. As a result, waves of staff members have left the school system for better paying jobs in Alexandria and Arlington and Montgomery. This year, Fairfax County Public Schools has started with 200 teacher vacancies. That's 200 classrooms without teachers. FCPS is now, as Jane Strauss says, trekking the globe to find qualified teachers. Low-ranked school systems result in sizable decreases to property value. Without veteran teachers, you will notice a steep decline in the quality of education in Fairfax County. As your veteran teachers leave FCPS behind to work in surrounding counties, your families will follow. Despite your presentation of funds, the facts remain that Fairfax County has the second highest per capita income in the state, with the highest paid school board in the state, and one of the lowest teacher compensations in the surrounding area, which still falls painfully below the rate of inflation. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the rate of inflation has risen 21.3%. A teacher would have to be earning $60,344 to match inflation and afford the cost of living in Fairfax County. At the conclusion of 11 years, a teacher in FCPS earns $60,228. This means the salary I earn today is equivalent to what I earned year one. When I became a teacher, I never expected to be wealthy, but I did expect that I would be able to purchase a home and raise a family. I'm now 35 years old. I've served Fairfax County Public Schools full-time for 11 years, and I still cannot afford to buy a family, to buy a home, and I still cannot afford to start a family.
Thank you. We have Rachna Heiser, followed by William Farnsworth and Judith Harbeck.
Hello, my name is Rachna Heiser, and earlier you heard my daughter Laura Sizemore speak as one of the students. This is her brother she spoke of. He's not here, so I brought his picture. I want to address specifically the suggestions to reduce special education spending to pay for AP exams and extracurricular activities. I say this as a parent of a child who has taken 15 AP exams. I know what that would have cost me. I would pay it happily. Happily. When you look at AP exams versus special education funding, there's no debate to be had. The hyper-emphasis that FCPS puts on AP exams is unfounded. The scores with the exams are not even a factor in college admissions, and my daughter's going to Cornell. I know. All right? It begs the question, why do Fairfax County taxpayers fully fund the cost of each and every AP exam? We have teachers who are crying because they can't start families, and we're funding every student's AP exam? What about a sliding scale? These are low-hanging fruit. Why are we not going after these low-hanging fruit? I understand we're a world-class institution and organization, but the AP exams aren't what make us that. It is the teachers. That's what makes us a world-class institution. That's not my remarks. I just feel really bad. This is really, to me, about special education and the views we have as society on people with disabilities that we don't think of as quite normal, but they are. And they are deserving of opportunities. I can tell you firsthand that people with disabilities have amazing abilities, but even more so, people with disabilities have the same right as you and I to be part of our society. The primary mission of schools is to help students gain the skills necessary to be a productive part of our society. Special education services are crucial to help the most vulnerable of students gain these skills. But yet somehow the debate has become about whether a child with a disability to access a free and appropriate education is less worthy than a child's right to earn college credit for free while in high school. Special education services are crucial for a child with a disability to have a shot at living a full and productive life, but somehow charging a fee for extracurricular activities is more important than that. The need for special education is growing rapidly. In 10 years, there's a 1,397% increase of students with autism in FCPS. If anything, FCPS needs to increase funding for these students, not decrease funding. The consequences of not increasing funding is dire. Students like my son, like my daughter, like the 1 in 53 students with autism need to have their place in society, and special education services are crucial for them to even have a job and a productive place in our society. DSS has already cut staff. DSS has greater training needs than many other departments. There is really no money in special education to be spent. If we're going to meet the law requirements, if we're going to include our students, if our students are going to have a productive life, we need to take care of the most vulnerable first. I'm a big believer in AP exams. I'm a big believer in all that, but not at the expense of the students who need the education the most to live a productive life. So please, let's have conversations that take care of the needs of all. Thank you.
William Farnsworth, followed by Judith Harbeck and Rodrigo Velasquez.
I'd like to speak about the importance of teacher retention in Fairfax County. I grew up in Fairfax County. I'm a graduate of Fairfax County Public Schools. I had 2 older sisters that were really good students. My oldest sister graduated with a 4.0 GPA with honors, and it was from the many college recruiters that visited her that I learned of the stellar reputation of Fairfax County, its teachers, and its graduates. I was not a good student at the time. My educational plan was to lay low and fly under the radar. But most of the teachers at the schools I attended, because of my older sisters, already knew my parents. They were having none of that. Because of that, I got the push that got me through school, through high school, into college, and into a successful first career. As a result of that, I was able to purchase a home and settle my family here in Fairfax County, and my 4 children attend Fairfax County Public Schools. The cycle has begun again. There are teachers that teach at my children's schools year after year. I know them, they know my children aren't getting away with anything. Those teachers that we have in Fairfax County, the exceptional teachers, have made critical differences in the success of my children, both educationally and socially. I mentioned that I had a successful first career. I recently became a teacher in Fairfax County Public Schools. I brought to my teaching content area decades of professional real-world experience. I'm well qualified. But I'm a more effective teacher because of the training and mentoring I've received from experienced teachers here in Fairfax County who have given countless hours of personal time before school, after school, during lunch to help me better apply those decades of professional experience to reaching the students that I have here in Fairfax County. Now, when I talk to my sisters about our childhood and our education, when I talk to my own children about their education, teachers are at the heart of every one of those conversations. Our success educationally goes straight to the teachers. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of those teachers. So as a teacher myself, as a graduate of Fairfax County Public Schools, and most importantly, as a parent of students in Fairfax County, I ask you, I beg you to cultivate this important resource, these experienced, exceptional teachers. Protect this investment that we've already made in creating the premier workforce that we want, and please do it quickly. Too many of these exceptional teachers are looking for jobs in other counties and in other professions. And if they leave, the effect will be profound. And we will wake up one morning soon and discover that the real portrait of a Fairfax County Public School graduate is not a pretty picture. Thank you for letting me speak.
Good evening. I'm Judy Harbeck. I'm the chair of the Education Committee of the Mount Vernon Council of Citizens Associations. We have a resolution that I think you already have, but there's a few things I wanted to highlight there. And one of them is listening to everyone here. The Mount Vernon Council is acutely aware of the funding problems that are faced by the school board here and of its sources and what can be done about it perhaps in the future. And I'm kind of hoping everyone here who is talking is going to show up before the Board of Supervisors next year and also talk to their state representatives about it. But anyway, there were a few things that we did want to talk about on the budget because I think they fall disproportionately on schools with high levels of poverty children. And those are the test fees, with all due respect, and the athletic fees. You have to remember that the test fees are not just to get college credit, they're for preparation, and they're typically the highest level course. AP and IB are the highest level courses you can take in the school. So by putting a fee on them, you are making it difficult for children to take the courses. Now, I know free and reduced lunch get to do it free, and the suggestion is to have a couple of courses paid for, but we kind of forget in this county that we have free and reduced lunch, and we have affluent people, many of us right here, who would be more than happy to pay for 5 or 10 AP exams potentially for other kids or for their own kids. But there's a big segment too, and it's mostly at disadvantaged schools with high FRMs that also find it difficulty and don't have disposable income to pay for their children's exams, to pay for athletics. So what that means is you are reducing the ability of these children to participate in the high-level courses at your school, especially, for example, IB diploma, where there's a lot more than 3 exams per year. And that affects participation in sports as well. One of the saddest things in my history was I saw my parents waiting outside till halftime because they couldn't afford to come in and watch their children play sports. Those parents don't have $300 so their kid could play in the first place. So I would ask you to reconsider attaching fees to those. The other minor point is the parking fees. Now, this seems like a stupid thing, but as parents and as citizens, we want those kids in the parking lots, because if they're not in the parking lots, they're parked everywhere with no supervision and no security. And when you increase the fee, the kids stop parking in the lots. Mount Vernon, for example, only has 25% of their lot filled. And the minute the fees went up to $200, it went down from there. So I think you might even not see the savings you think, because kids will just abandon the parking lots. The only other minor thing that I just wanted to mention is there were a few things that you'll see in the resolution that we feel could have been examined more carefully for some savings. And one of those was the management fees for the retirement funds and possibly linking those to the county funds, which could save several million dollars a year, potentially, and also provide a better return. So we'd like you to consider that for this year and for the next. Finally, thank you. I wouldn't have your job, but I appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Rodrigo Velasquez, Jeb Stewart, and John DeLong.
Entonces, esta última semana, hace 2 días, estaba hablando con mi mamá. Estamos celebrando el Día de la Madre, estamos hablando un poco de mi educación. Hemos dicho que cuando yo era más pequeño, que era un poquito más difícil para que ella entienda a las personas que estaba hablando con en las escuelas. Entonces dije, qué interesante, porque ahorita voy a hablar con las personas que hacen esas decisiones. ¿Por qué no lo hablo en español primero? Para que ellos entiendan un poquito cómo ella sentía. Let me restart that. 2 days ago, I was celebrating Mother's Day with my mom. We were talking about my education. It's the first year that we're celebrating Mother's Day with me being a college graduate. So it was a really big deal for her because that was her wish when she came to this country over 17 years ago as an undocumented mom raising 4 children by herself. She said raising 4 children and making sure that she demanded perfection in their education was no easy feat because she didn't speak English. And I told her, that's really ironic because I signed up to speak at a school board meeting. Why don't they feel even if it's just for a few seconds, how she felt for most of her life in this country. Just a few seconds, where half of y'all looked at me with a lot of confusion. And you know, for so many immigrant women, single moms, new moms, incoming moms, who don't speak English, the pathway for their children's education is through a parent liaison. Can we pause? I still want to speak. Sorry, I don't want to be in... Look, my mom demanded perfection, and she didn't even have papers to live in this country with authorization. I didn't have papers to live in this country with authorization. But somehow, through some miracle, through the support that my mom found through parent liaisons, not only was I able to be a competitive student when applying to schools and going for the IB diploma and everything else, but I graduated college, no debt. I mean, I can't take out loans, no papers, but semantics. Paying out-of-state tuition with multiple scholarships and being able to argue in front of the state capitol for many contentious bills on immigration, healthcare services, and various other things that are important to our community today. My mom demanded perfection, and that's what I strive to give. And while I know for an undocumented mom that might be a little difficult, but for many of us, particularly those who I'm speaking to, perfection isn't too much to ask for. We're striving towards it, we're not attaining it. I'm here representing Mason Dreamers, one of the most expansive and documented student organizations in the state of Virginia, asking for more well-compensated parent liaisons so that our students can access the resources, support, and pathway to education that they want. While Plier v. Doe creates access and opportunity, it doesn't necessarily mean that they get the resources that are available. And parent liaisons are crucial in being able to access those resources. As you all are planning for an increased population, you and I both know that increased population will most likely not speak English, will be first generation, and we need to plan for the resources and support so that these families create and add on to the beauty that's our diversity within our school division, within our school county. I'm dedicated as much as you are to advocate on multiple levels. I know I'm bothering you here. I'm bothering people in Richmond. I'm bothering people at the federal level. Let's do this together. Let's make equity a reality in Fairfax County Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeb Stewart. John DeLong. Yang Shin.
That's a tough act to follow. I don't have the second language capabilities that my friend here has. Good evening. My name is John DeLong. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board this evening. First, on a bit of a personal note, I'd like to take this opportunity to apologize to Ms. Darnett Koufax and Ms. McLaughlin for misrepresenting their comments and positions taken on issues discussed at the April 27th regular board meeting. In a letter to the Board of Supervisors, I referenced Ms. McLaughlin's vote on the Caring Culture presentation inaccurately and attributed comments on Mr. Belkoff's letter to the board members to Ms. Darnett Koufax, which were actually made by Ms. McLaughlin, so mea culpa. I was pleased with the board's vote at that meeting to work with the Board of Supervisors on pension issues. I commend you on your significant efforts to address the pension issues. I share your sincere hope that productive cooperation can be achieved between the two boards. Many of you have noted that the ERFC plan provides relatively rich benefits to FCPS retirees. Many have also noted that there is a direct trade-off between salary and benefits, and the cost of these benefits is increasing unsustainably. Over the past several months, I have provided lots of information and analysis concerning ERFC. I expect your work with the Board of Supervisors will focus on amending plan benefits, but this will take time. I don't take a position on the core ERFC benefits, but while these are being negotiated, I suggest, again, that you direct the ERFC board to restructure investment managers to achieve fee savings. As you know from my extensive advocacy and numerous slides, ERFC pays fees that are higher than peers and almost double those of FCERS. I have noted that up to $6 million in fee reductions would result from shifting to the same strategies employed by FCERS. $6 million is enough money to fund 60 teachers, and these savings can be realized without impacting teachers, students, or the fund's existing allocation. You have heard moving testimony from many students, parents, and teachers concerned with the impact of spending reductions. My proposal can be implemented with a will, and I urge you to make this work. Thank you for your attention to what I'm sure feels like intensive advocacy. I appreciate the kind consideration from many of you and also from FCPS staff, particularly Ms. Michael. It is a strong indication of the underlying strengths of this institution that is so important to the quality of life here in Fairfax County. Someone mentioned a moment ago that they wouldn't have your job, but it must be satisfying to engage in meaningful work that certainly positively affects so many people. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Shin. Followed by James Ruland and Rebecca Golden.
Good evening. My name is Yongshin. Please know that I am limited with English, so 3 minutes is not enough, but I will try. First of all, I would like to state that my daughter and I would not be here today if it was not for her school parent liaison, Ms. Kang. I know that Ms. Kang's continued care and guidance saved my daughter's life. Before meeting her, my daughter had almost given up hope in life. I felt as if she was a time bomb ticking further away from life. Due to my limited English, I was so happy to find out there was a Korean-American parent liaison. Out of my desperation, I asked her to watch out for my daughter, as I have told her about my daughter's mental health condition along with family issues. Ms. Kang immediately connected me and my daughter to her school counselor and the school social work while they were trying to help my daughter. It didn't work well due to lack of English, but Ms. Kang was there to speak with my daughter in Korean. My daughter was an ESOL student when she was a freshman, so she was not able to express her feeling and emotion in English. I often visited school to see Ms. Kang because she spoke Korean and helped me with many resources that I needed besides my daughter's education. It was such a relief to know that I was able to talk about my daughter's matter in Korean, daughter who has no friends, no hope, and suffers from depression that led to suicidal thoughts. But the only reason she is alive today is because there was one person in school who was in school paying attention to her in her native tongue. That person was the parent liaison, Ms. Kang, who can understand her culture and language. I wonder what would have happened if there was no parent liaison in school. For this reason, I also want to thank you and FCPS. Honestly, when I first met Ms. Kang, I was not sure about how much help she can provide me and my daughter, as I witnessed many parents and students visiting her tiny office constantly. It was not until many months have passed when my daughter told me that Ms. Kang has checked up on her to see how she was doing in school. I was grateful when my daughter told me that she often took her lunch to Ms. Kang's office and ate there. It brought me to tears. I felt like Ms. Kang was my daughter's second mom to her and a mentor. She gave us peace in knowing someone cared for us at the school and that our lives mattered in the community. My daughter and I would not be standing here if it was not for Ms. Kang at one point. Ms. Kang and school social worker found a shelter for us, and Ms. Kang came to the shelter with me and my daughter to register us after school. I remember looking at my watch and it was 1:40 a.m. The next day, Miss Kang left shelter. That is not all.
Yes, if you could just please wrap up. Thank you.
Again, I would not be standing here today, especially my daughter, if it was not for Miss Kang, the parent region, who were there for us. And most importantly, I'm pleading to pass the full benefit to the parent region. They work hard working toward transforming students and their parents who are marginalized people like us. Thank you for your listening and listening to me.
Thank you. James Rulin, followed by Rebecca Golden and Morella Saldana.
Good evening. My name is Jim Rulin, and I'm a resident of Fairfax County. I'm here to provide citizen feedback on the fiscal 2018 budget for Fairfax County Public Schools. More specifically, I protest any public money allocated or spent on implementing the illegal gender identity language added to Policy 1450 due to violating the Dillon Rule, prohibiting local jurisdictions overriding laws of the state of Virginia. Although it was announced there was a pause in implementation of this policy, previous testimony given to this board has indicated that the policy has been being implemented on a case-by-case basis within various schools within Fairfax County. Although Virginia Supreme Court recently dismissed a case for plaintiffs lacking standing, Virginia follows the Dillon Rule, requiring local non-discrimination laws do not be more stringent than the state law. The state law does not include sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. This issue will be ripe for lawsuit once the school board's policy inevitably results in an injury. And where can this injury occur? How about the estimated 10,000 young female rape and sexual assault survivors in FCPS, especially those that carry trauma and can be easily triggered by unwanted exposure to the opposite sex in intimate settings like the female bathrooms, locker rooms, and showers? Are not these many young girls worthy of respect, dignity, inquiry, and careful consideration and attention? Are these thousands of students to be suspended and expelled for not wanting to strip for the opposite sex or watch them undress? And although the focus, rightfully so, has been on the girls, what about the boys? What happens if a pre-op girl shows up in the boys' locker room, in the showers? What if they have an involuntary reaction? Are the boys going to be subject to a charge of harassment? Are they going to be subject to criminal prosecution and a possible criminal record? Why does the school board seek to create such chaos and drama? There are tens of thousands of religious adherents and ethnic diverse parents and children who believe in sexual modesty. Are these thousands of students to be suspended for using the wrong pronouns or simply not embracing radical sexual beliefs of others, which has for the most part never existed in all of human history and is by and large a radical experiment using innocent children without parents' consent? What about them? And what of students, parents, and teachers who object based on science and medicine? Men have XY chromosomes, women have XX chromosomes. It's in every cell of our body. What about science? Are we to ignore that, or are we going to say that one day I could be a frog or a dog or living in a bog? Are we just going to make things up as we go? What about science? We hear that we should be teaching science. Science has been settled on this matter. Frankly, I'm astonished that we're even having this discussion. It not only represents intolerance, bigotry, and a complete disrespect by insulting hundreds of thousands of students, parents, and citizens you're supposed to represent, but also significant financial liabilities. As with these last remarks, I plead to you to repeal the controversial modifications and not waste any money on the controversial subjects of the public schools, where it is required by law to provide a public education for all students, not just activist groups that you work behind the scenes to destroy public trust. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you. Rebecca Golden, Morella Saldana, and Paul McClemens.
Thank you for allowing me to provide testimony tonight. I'm the mother to 4 children who attend Fairfax County Public Schools, 2 in elementary school and 2 in high school. I'm a past president of the Fairfax County Association for the Gifted, a community volunteer organization that believes all children deserve to learn in school. And lastly, I'm a professor at George Mason University, where I teach mathematics to many students, including pre-service teachers. I'm here tonight because of the published recommendations for the 2018 budget. First, I want to thank you and FCPS staff for diligently preserving programs. We are happy to see that FCPS will continue to fund language immersion schools, the strings and bands program in 4th and 5th grades, and that students will continue to have access to buses to level 4 centers if they choose to attend them. I am concerned, however, about the proposal to increase the class size by 0.5 students per class. At George Mason, we also have budget constraints, and we also solve them by increasing class size. Most professional teachers know how to handle large classrooms. We learn these tricks by necessity. Let me share a few of them with you to see if they strike you as both familiar and a source of complaint. Number one, multiple choice tests. There's no time to review a student's work, so you just throw them a multiple choice test. Limited feedback on written assignments. Whether it's homework or essays, teachers can grade just a bit of what was turned in, or write nice job without thoroughly reading the work. There isn't time to grade when your classes are large. Teach to the common denominator. We don't have the flexibility to differentiate instruction when there are more than about 25 students in a classroom. Arrange classroom activities to minimize the multiplier effect. More people means more interactions. It means less control for the teacher. Kids start to fight, play, distract each other, get off topic, joke around, whatever. You can also lecture at the students instead of provide engaging activities. Most activities require physical space. If you don't have it, just sit them in their chairs and lecture at them. Cancel elective or advanced coursework, especially at the high school level. If there aren't enough students to supply a large classroom filled with Photography 2 or Latin 4 students, principals won't run the class. So these are the kinds of impacts that we'll have by continuing to increase classroom size. No one welcomes these compromises, and teachers with integrity invariably look for how they can have an impact. Our most talented teachers can and will leave FCPS to teach in neighboring districts or in private schools. That makes increased class size penny-wise and pound-foolish. Our students will miss out on those of our teachers who leave the system, while the teachers who remain invariably resort to time-saving techniques that cost our community with compromised instructional techniques. Your decisions interact with others. I recently met with a high school teacher who is leaving FCPS because she's so overwhelmed by the grading. This has to do with the new retake policy and how it interacts with the large classroom size. She simply can't do her job any longer. So there are plenty of other ways to save money, including some unpaid holidays for 12-month salaried employees, for example. I believe our kids will pay if we don't find a different place to cut. Thank you very much.
Morella Saldana. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mireya Saldana. Yes, Mireya Saldana. Not many people can pronounce that, but later on, I'll let you know someone who could and made a difference in my life. Exactly 15 years ago, I actually stood here on behalf of the ESOL programs 1 year after I arrived from Peru, my home country. Now, I stand here as an FCPS alumna, Jeb Stuart High School, bilingual IB diploma recipient, Fairfax County constituent, and future school counselor. Thank you. The titles I mentioned today are only possible because of the people that I particularly mention as angels as I motivate students, first-generation students who attend George Mason University. I tell them my angels helped me out. Who was that angel? One of them is actually sitting here, Marsha Donovan, my parent liaison at Jeb Stuart High School. You see, as a 12th grade student, being here, first-generation immigrant, sister, or you can call it second mom, to then a 4-year-old and a 2-week-old brother, I had to make the decision if I wanted to go to college. I wanted to go to college, but I had to make up my mind if I could. Unfortunately, I had a school representative who told me I could not because of my immigration status. I became depressed. Every time the lights shut in my classroom, I cried. The only person who would notice would be my mom. Was she in the classroom? No, she was not. But she could feel my heavy breathing as I became depressed and became so low about myself. I mentioned my 2-week-old brother. Well, my mom had my brother, and I was still depressed. She knocked the doors of Jeb Stuart High School, and the one person that could speak her language was Marsha Donovan. Thankfully, because of her, I was able to advocate for myself because she could speak in my language, say my name, and speak in our culture. I stand to you as the sister of a college access program kid who is 13 years old at Glasgow Middle School now, thanks to the experience that my mother had with Marsha Donovan as a parent liaison. I also speak to you as a sister of an AAP student at Belvedere Elementary School because my mom feels comfortable speaking to someone at the school system. I also speak to you as a motivator of first-generation students because of this parent liaison. So I thank you as you consider the benefits for someone as a catalyst and how essential this person is in Fairfax County Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul McClellan, followed by Huang Hutchinson and Cecilia Goldstein.
Good evening, Dr. Lockhart, Chairman Evans, and esteemed school board members. My name is Paul McClemens, President of the Fairfax County Federation of Teachers. I represent employees young and experienced, and soon I will be returning to the classroom as an experienced art teacher, Fairfax County taxpayer, and proud union member. Thank you for your considered thought and support in teacher compensation and the salary scales. We do appreciate any compensation we can get. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the teachers who have a bachelor's degree in education, but lack the adequate salary and compensation to gain a master's degree in the county. As an art teacher with 12 years of teaching experience, I have spent the time taking master's level courses in education and master's level studio art courses for credit to renew my teaching certificate every 5 years. Since the county no longer pays a stipend for college coursework, I can only afford to take one class per 5 years, and that only covers recertification. At this rate, I wouldn't be able to get a master's degree before I retire. Luckily, I came into FCPS with 6 master's credits that were paid in full by the school system I previously worked for. While I have been a teacher here in FCPS, I was able to take advantage of the stipend that was given to teachers years ago that were looking to move forward in their careers. In the first 10 years here in FCPS, I took 2 technology for the art room courses and a precious metal clay jewelry course for all VCO master credit. I've earned my bachelor's plus 15 and proud of it. I've maintained a 4.0 GPA, something I wasn't able to do well in undergraduate classes. I'm working my way towards my master's degree, but it is a slow road with little compensation throughout the journey. The Commonwealth of Virginia only requires a teacher with a bachelor's degree to take 1 master's class every 5 years in order to renew their teaching certificate. For that reasoning and the loss of the stipend from FCPS, I'm in no hurry to take graduate courses and gain a master's degree. It is my understanding that the school board will be looking at teacher scales in the future and proposing to eliminate the next achievement in my journey, the bachelor's plus 30 teacher scale. I understand the budgetary reasoning behind eliminating the scale, and I have seen the change in salary when a person moves from bachelor's plus 15 to master's on the new proposed salary scale. It is a significant change in salary. It will benefit those who are already on the current scale, but it eliminates the excitement and gratitude an employee feels when they achieve one more goal closer to another degree and are compensated for it. It also gives an employee who is between bachelor's plus 15 and bachelor's plus 30 a goal to achieve. Please consider the teachers who take these courses, bring the knowledge back into the FCPS classroom to share with students and colleagues, and who deserve to keep this salary scale intact. If you have any questions about the proposed salary scales and its impact on employees like myself, please reach out to me and ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hutchinson? And Cecilia Goldstein?
Good evening. My name is Cecilia Goldstein. I have been a parent liaison in Fairfax County for the past 15 years. The lady next to me is Mayra Cáceres. She's one of my parents at Franklin Middle School. I come here today to demonstrate to you that parent liaisons play a very important role in our students' well-being and education success every day. And for that, I'm going to tell you the story, a wonderful story. I am, sorry, I'm very nervous. Selvin Ayala, her son, who started in September in 7th grade and spoke very little English. And Mom came to school in February and looked very distraught, trying to get help for him to get eyeglasses because his were broken. She tried to speak English, however, the office staff were unable to fully understand how they could help. I was called to help, and I assured Mom we would do our best to meet his needs. On my way home, I saw Mrs. Cáceres, Selvin's mom, walking along the sidewalk. She was looking down and was walking very slowly. I offered to take her home. On the way to her home, she confided in me and told me her story. She's a single mom who fled to the U.S. for spousal abuse and gang threats to her family. She had been working very hard to give her son a good education. However, she was about to be displaced from the place she was living in and had no place to live. In addition, the person who she was working with had cut her hours and didn't let her cook in the house. As soon as I got home that evening, I contacted my Franklin Middle School parents and found to see if they knew anybody that could rent a room to them. Thankfully, one of our families came through and that could rent a room to them. At my other school, I knew a parent that had her own business and was looking to hire someone, so I was able to put the two of them in contact, so at the end, Mrs. Cáceres not only found a place to live, but a good paying job as well. And now the most wonderful news. Today, Selvin has been accepted to become a member of the National Junior Honor Society. He has a 3.5 GPA and has done a magnificent job after all the adversities he had endured, not only this year, but all that he had to endure coming to this country. Saying that, and on behalf of all the other parent liaisons, we do a very hard work, and we would like to be treated the same as everybody else that works for Fairfax County Public Schools. We are very deserving to receive benefits just like everybody else. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I'm going to call the names out of the people that did not show the first time. If you're here, please come up to the podium. Ernie Wells, Sarah Mattingly, Jeb Stewart, Wangsa Hutchinson. All right, so what that is that leaves us with 4 no-show slots. Anyone here who would like to address the board, we have 4 who has not addressed the board. If you can come up here if you'll state your name, and then after you are done, I only have 4 slots. So if you, those are the 4 people right now. If you will just sit up here in the front row, and you can then just give us your first name when you come up here, and then please check in with the clerk's table afterward.
At the end, okay. My name is Kathy Adams. I am a board member of POAC NOVA, which stands for Parents of Autistic Children of Northern Virginia. When we first moved here in the fall of 2010, my biggest concern was in finding a good school for my children. The oldest was in advanced coursework, and my youngest was in special education. I called Scott Campbell. Scott informed me that Fairfax County would be the best fit for my family, and he explained how we would want to live where there was an ABA site school for my daughter, as they offered evidence-based practice teachings catered towards students with autism. Although my husband was being stationed at Quantico and the surrounding areas in Stafford and Prince William were more affordable, we decided to live in Fairfax County. POAC NOVA has an active listserv of around 500 members. Every week, we get multiple inquiries about where to live, and the unanimous reply is Fairfax County. We are proud of our schools. Prior to the meals tax vote, I shared with our listserv members Fairfax County's budgetary issues, particularly with retaining special education teachers when neighboring counties offer higher pay. I was very disappointed when the vote no crowd had the majority. As I understand, we wouldn't be facing these tough budgetary decisions if it had passed. That being said, I feel that cutting special education is not the answer. It certainly is something I would consider if the numbers of the special ed students were decreasing, but we know that is not the case. Let me share some data compiled by Virginia's Department of Education related to students with autism. In the state of Virginia, for the school year 2016 to 2017, 19,566, which is an increase from the previous year of 18,256. Over 19 years, from 97 to 2016, FCPS has had an increase of 1,397% of students with only autism. FCPS students total 188,000. And there is a prevalence of 1 in 53 students with only the primary diagnosis of autism. In Northern Virginia, which consists 14 counties, FCPS supports 42% of the total student population of students with autism. Out of the whole state of Virginia, FCPS supported almost 18% of students with autism in fiscal year 2016. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ed, will please go over to the clerk and give her your information. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sonia Aun. I am a parent of 2 children in the French immersion program at Kent Gardens in McLean, Virginia, and a rising kindergartner at Bonnie Bray, which is our home-based school in Burke Center. It is my understanding that cuts to special education funding are being considered in part in order to avoid complaints about increased fees, though I am certain that is not the only consideration. Now, I am a litigator, but I do settle most of my cases, and as such, I am no stranger to compromise. As a parent of children in both the general education and the special education setting, I am asking you to err on the side of disappointing the general education students and compromising away a little bit of the funding that might be needed for some of the interests that they have, as opposed to the special education students. In other words, if the increased fees are the trade-off, if that's our compromise, if there's something else you're considering and that's the compromise, I would like you to compromise in favor of my dyslexic son, which is what I would do, as opposed to giving my girls maybe a little tiny bit more that he doesn't need, or that they don't need, that he does need rather. Now, I know the board annually has to struggle with the budget question, item by item by item. How much is enough? I'm here to share with you a little bit about our story in my family, about what's enough, just to help put a face on it. For the 2 years prior to my son's diagnosis with dyslexia, he and I sat every single night. I was literally sweating, trying to help him decode and decipher words as simple as cat. We spent 20 to 30 minutes, night after night, working through one paragraph, and every time a word popped up that we'd just gone through before, it was as if we had never seen it before. I was sweating, and it wasn't enough. His second grade teachers, who, as far as I'm concerned, deserve medals for their interactions with him last year, worked with him above and beyond the scope of what they needed to give him. Now, this was the general education setting. He hadn't yet been assessed. They still went out of their way to give him small group instruction. They created little programs to try to help him. They did their level best, and it wasn't enough. We finally had him assessed, and he was diagnosed with dyslexia, And in March of 2016, he began his special education classes in Orton Gillingham Methods. His teacher meets with his general education teachers. He has special meetings with them to try to make sure that they understand that he can not only keep up with his AAP classes in French education, but he can also do the work required of him. And I will tell you, I'm so proud of him and so happy with his teacher, who also deserves a medal, that in less than a year with these special education classes, he has come from being basically at a first grade level to almost being on target for third grade, and we've done that in 1 year. Special education classes, when you're looking at your line items, that's enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Carolina Dottel, and I'm gonna representing Mrs. Berta Santos. One of her sons goes to Falls Church High School. She did not get permission from her supervisor, where she does cleaning, to come to speak in front of you. So the letter is in Spanish, and I'm gonna translate it for you. Good evening, members of the school board. My name is Berta Santos, Hispanic, legal resident, mother of 3 students of Fairfax County. I do not speak English. I come to tell you that Mrs. Carolina Dottel has helped me a lot in Falls Church High School. She tells me who to speak with when I have a situation with my kids. She helps me as an interpreter. She helps me to understand the papers that I receive from a school, to fill them up, to check if my kids are attending a school, as they told me, and to tell me where can I find help in the community. She also helps me with calls to other community institutions. She has coordinated rides when I have needed to go to the court, programs of the school, and other important appointments. She invites me to parenting classes, seminars about gangs, drugs, and other important topics that we should know to raise our children in the American way and in a safe way, without losing the family value that we have as Hispanics. The presentations that Carolina do at school are important, and they help us to protect our children. Carolina works tirelessly helping the parents of Falls Church High School. Even though she's always busy, she receives us with a smile, and she makes us feel welcome. I feel trust to speak with her, and I know she will be there to support me whenever I need it. I'm very grateful for Fairfax County to have parent liaisons. I believe that they should receive benefits, and for all of them in Fairfax County Public School. Sincerely, Berta Santos.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Amanda Campbell, and I am here as the parent of a current 4.5-year-old who is in a non-CAT preschool program at Cherry Run Elementary, and she is a rising kindergartner going to the ID program at Rolling Valley in the fall. I am here obviously because of my concerns with the cuts to special education. I am a member of the new special ed PTA, and as a teacher in this county as well, I am substitute teacher for the county. I am very emotional, as you can tell. I apologize. And honestly angry about the cuts that I am hearing being proposed for special education. And the reason why, I will share a little bit with you my story coming into Fairfax County. My daughter began receiving services from early intervention when she was 10 months old. We didn't have a cause, we just knew she had global developmental delays, and ITC helped us tremendously. And when we began the transitioning process into the preschool program through Fairfax County, I went to a tour at one of the preschool sites just to see what it was, what services were offered, and just get an idea of the program. My child at the time was nonverbal, not walking. She's still nonverbal. She's now currently walking. But at the time, one of the teachers who were leading the tour specifically told every parent in the room, this was 2 years ago, specifically told every parent in the room, your child will not receive speech services. Will not. And I'm sitting here as a parent of a nonverbal 3-year-old at the time. No, that doesn't apply to us. They can't possibly tell me my child doesn't need speech therapy. She's already receiving it from ITC. It's very clear that she needs it, so I was confident that we wouldn't have a problem with it. Fast forward about 3 weeks later to our first IEP meeting, and during that meeting, we had to fight, and when I say fight, I mean fight, to get a consult, a speech-language consult, just a consult. We were granted, it was written into the IEP that she would have evaluations at the moment school started for PT and OT. Speech was withheld. We had to fight. When that speech consult came back, the initial evaluation for a nonverbal 3-year-old was 1 hour of speech a month, 15 minutes a week to bring my child from not speaking to speaking. We didn't sign the IEP. I didn't accept it. I knew that there was more offered because I am a teacher in this county and I know what services are available, so I fought. And thankfully, we are now at 4 hours of service a month. That is still woefully inadequate for her apraxia diagnosis and far below what is received across the country, where students receive 3 hours a week. I'm sorry. So it is already very difficult to get the services that are necessary in this county for children with special needs to succeed. I beg you, please do not cut them further. The people who do not know that those services are available and don't fight are the ones who are being hurt the most. These children are already the most vulnerable population that we have. Please do not cut the budget on their backs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming to tonight's public hearing and sharing your comments and concern. Our approved budget will be discussed at a work session this coming Thursday, May 18th, beginning at 7 p.m. here at Luther Jackson Middle School. And the board is scheduled to take action on the FY18 budget on May 25th. Again, thank you for your comments, and this hearing is adjourned.